Welcome to the Phosphine Catalogue, number 15033. We see light, where others see only darkness. The catalogue is very pleased to welcome Carissa Verville as our guest writer this week. Overleaf, you'll find her featured column, William Morris and the Craft of Art, a deep and interesting exploration of how wider turn-of-the-century ideas influenced, and were influenced by, our Guy's society. Miss Verville is on loan from writing for Definite Articles, the Guy's newspaper that appears for subscribers every full moon. I'm certain many of our readers will be familiar with it. It seems due to technical problems. The paper has paused circulation at present. We here at the catalogue hope to receive our copy of Definite Articles on a full moon in the not-too-distant future. Morwenna, I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I telephoned the Articles office hoping to speak with Vincent Stansby, the company's owner and someone who's been extremely helpful with particularly tricky lots, especially the more literary ones, but the line was dead. I asked Carissa about it, but she won't say anything. So I thought I'd drop by their office and ask, heading over to Bloomsbury at lunchtime today. But the entire building is gone. Not like it's been demolished, it's just a brick void. Like it was never there. Just like last month's paper. I was sure it was right here in my desk drawer. But that's gone too. Lot number 10049. Drawings of Disaggregation. Peter Tidd, 1959. A hierarchical set of pencil drawings. For viewing in the Manhattan Room this week is an unusual set of 22 pencil drawings on thin A4 printing paper. The artist, Mr. Tidd, was a postmaster at the Hanover Street Post Office in Liverpool for much of his adult life, and according to information received by the catalogue, had not seemed inclined to art before producing this set. Sadly, whatever artistic muse took hold of Mr. Tidd 17 years ago had not the time to produce any further work before the artist's untimely death that same year. Lot number 10049 is offered for sale by the late artist's mother, Lynn, along with a few other sentimental effects that we understand interested readers may find for auction at Turner & Sons of Liverpool. Though the other items Mrs. Tidd presented to us were not without charm, it is in her son's drawings of disaggregation we find the real magic. As I walk between the 22 pencil drawings here in the gallery, I'm struck by two things. The technique is notably unrefined, as typifies outsider art, and yet this does not diminish the experience at all. Indeed, the raw, almost childlike simplicity of the renderings lend them a haunting earnestness and honesty. The artist's mother could neither say what the theme of the drawings are, nor guess as to what inspired her son to make them. However, it did not take long under the bright lights of our workshop for me to identify the pattern. I believe the 22 drawings are structured after the major arcana of the tarot deck, though no similarities to any standard deck can be found. There is no penitent hanged man dangling stoically by a foot, nor grizzled hermit, lantern aloft, nor everybody's favourite 13th card. Each drawing is captioned in thick pencil at the bottom of the page. But again the artist eschews tradition. Or, perhaps, the more I learn about him, I realise he does not know of the tradition. No other occult items were found in his effects, I'm told, and the artist seemed to spend most of his time either working, at the local pub, or at home tinkering with his model train set. Quite a full schedule, leaving little time for drawing down the moon or other great rites. The titles in this set do not reference the typical greater secrets of the tarot. If the reader, upon scheduling an appointment and visiting the Manhattan Room, were hoping to find the Hierophant Tower or Devil, they will leave disappointed. But if they look past tradition, they might find more than they hoped for. It is clear that Mr. Tidd named each drawing only after making them, and they are all simple and descriptive. Monster, mother, knight, sea, and so forth. I believe the names came to the artist after the sudden compulsion to draw ebbed away, and he looked at the drawings with fresh eyes, almost in surprise, and attempted to comprehend, rationalise or classify what he had wrought. The only recognisable design was the final of the set, number 22, which I believe corresponds with the Fool tarot card. Here, the artist, in an act of humility or humour, has sketched a self-portrait. It was this first recognisable drawing that allowed me to unlock the meaning of the others. Morwenna, I wish I could talk to you. I need to talk to you. Something happened at last night's rehearsal. The stage has finally been set up in the bell room by Aldwick's handymen. You remember those two ugly porters who picked up lot number 7870, Golden Oracle? Same guys. Same gruff attitude. Same sharp eyes. They still give me the willies. I'm glad they were so efficient at their job. They'd bolted the stage together in no time and left without a word. The incident happened on that stage, while we were in the middle of the Act 3 denouement. You know, the big climactic one. We'd just reset for the 20th time after Joe or Ola or Rachel? Oh, I can't remember who it was now. It really doesn't matter. Had forgotten or flubbed one of their lines. I was quite annoyed at having to do it all again, but not at her, whoever it was. It wasn't her fault. In my mind, it was our director's. For someone so precious about the exact wording of the performance, he sure changes it a lot. At the start of nearly every rehearsal, Aldwick confiscates our scripts and hands out new edited ones. It's only a word or two changed each time, so it's easy to adjust, and he's marked the changes clearly. But it's so tedious to be constantly remarking up my notes. I highlight the lines that are mine so I don't miss them. And as one of the main characters, Commutatio has a lot to say, so this is quite a laborious process. Anyway, we were in the middle of this tricky scene and suddenly all the gallery lights went out. I thought there'd been a power cut, but there hadn't. My eyes adjusted, and I could still see the gallery lights in the ceiling. But it was like there was suddenly fog or mist in the room, occluding them. I could just make out the walls and the door back to the entrance lobby through this thick mist. Warwick had been mid-speech when the change happened, and I realised after a few seconds that he was still going, like nothing unusual had happened, though his voice had changed, somehow. I looked back to the stage and was astonished to find I could see my fellow players clear as day. Their costumes were vibrant and much more complex than I thought they'd been. Warwick's donkey suit looked especially realistic. And Jo looked radiant. It wasn't just clear as day, it was bright as day too. I looked down at my hands, which were warm with sunlight. I don't know how, but just for a moment, we'd been partially transported into the story. The world of the play. Is this your doing, Morwenna? Some power in your catalogue building? A trick played on Aldwick, perhaps? I hope so. I would rather you be in control. You are in control, aren't you, Morwenna? "21 of the designs in what I'm calling the TID deck are unrecognisable, both in subject and mostly form, being almost but not quite abstract. However, the last card, labelled the Fool, this self-portrait, is very clear. It shows the artist at work at a large table that's mostly given over to the track of a model train set. He has his back to us. We cannot see his face, nor the piece he's working on, but there is a hint of movement around the right arm suggesting he's at work. There is a shadow cast on the wall to the left, as though a spotlight or a roaring campfire were on the floor to the subject's right. Mrs. Tidd did not recognise the light, assuring me the bare bulb of her son's room should be above him. I did not point out to her the very fine straight lines connecting from that looming shadow down to the artist's hands. Some shadows are not an absence of light, but the presence of something else. And poor Peter, it seems, was merely a puppet.
Hi folks, Tris here, writer of the Phosphine Catalogue. I do hope you love our show. If so, you might be interested to know that there are more episodes available on our Patreon. Between seasons, when Jude is away, Warwick Blackwood is curator, played by yours truly, and he has a very different attitude to curation. Membership starts at just £3 a month, and for your support of our independent production, you'll get episodes a week or so ahead of the public feed, and at higher tiers, the bonus Blackwood episodes, concept art, free stuff from our store, and even your name in the credits. No matter how you support Wolfie and I, even if it's just spreading the word to your friends, thank you so much for making this show possible. Okay, let me turn over this cassette.
Lot number 1859. Dreams of the Red House. Philip Webb. Painted between 1860 and 1915. A red house surrounded by mist. Oil on linen. Oak frame. To complement Carissa Verville's article, William Morris and the Craft of Art, this week, the catalogue is pleased to present a painting by father of the arts and crafts movement, and Morris's close collaborator, Philip Webb. The artist is, of course, world famous across many disciplines, from architecture to furniture, tableware, tapestries, wallpaper, tiles, and stained glass, to name but a few, all influenced by nature and traditional techniques and materials. However, until his death in 1915, it was never suspected that oil painting also featured in his mastery. Dreams of the Red House was never exhibited while the artist was alive. Indeed, the existence of this painting was not known until the renovation of the house itself revealed the painting hidden behind a plaster wall. The interested reader may have seen the painting when it was on display in the British Museum at last year's celebration of the Belle Époque era, the 4 decades between 1880 and the end of the First World War. The display of new artwork from such an influential figure in the art and design world was bound to draw attention. But the nature of this particular painting shocked the art world last year. On one of the many times I visited the British Museum, I was disappointed with the rather dry gallery captioning. The editor seemed to focus solely on Webb's architectural achievements, such as the Royal Courts of Justice, or his involvement in William Morris's decorating company. No attempt was made to understand or contextualise the extraordinary painting, which I thought rather cowardly, but perhaps not surprising. The British Museum is rather good at separating the artist from their art. After all, they've been doing it since 1753. Morwenna, I spoke with my housemate Edward Porter again last night. Outside Rossetti House this time. I was locking up the building after our rehearsal, and as I sealed the heavy door to the bellroom, I was suddenly aware of a strong smell of petrichor, like damp earth after the rain. I turned around quickly to find Edward standing in the middle of the entrance lobby. He gave me quite a start, I can tell you. I hadn't heard the main door. In fact, I was sure I'd locked it, nor had he announced himself. I tried to turn my gasp into a laugh as I greeted him. He crossed the polished stone of the lobby without making a sound, and then said, "You have something that belongs to me," in that strange accent of his. That caught me quite off guard. I eventually asked him what it was. Another lot? We'd sold his Infinity record. Did he mean that? After I stopped stammering, he told me, "The Lunar Refractor." "Alas, that belongs to the catalogue," I said. But he asked again, "Return it to me." I didn't quite know what to say after that, standing in the dark lobby with this strange creature of the night. How did he get here? Quite apart from the locks, I thought you had to invite his sort in. No amount of explaining would change his position, so not knowing what else to do, I took him up to the workshop on the first floor to show him the refractor. I unlocked the door and turned on the cold white strip lights in the ceiling. The better to navigate between the benches and inevitable detritus on the floor that I've tripped over far too many times to count. But the lights would not work. The glass tubes would only sputter on and off, no matter how many times I flicked the switch. Morwenna, you remember what I told you about Edward's dark room, don't you? These lights were working perfectly fine earlier today when I was studying lot number 10049 under them. I raised my eyebrows at Edward, and then, when that didn't elicit a response from the old stiff, I coughed and pointed up to the broken lights. He looked up at them slowly, eyes flickering in their dark sockets. "Ah," he said after a while. Then made a tiny gesture with his hands, and suddenly the lights all came on as one. "Thank you," I said, not wishing to know what had just happened, and led him over to the opposite corner of the workshop where the shining metal lunar refractor sits. I was surprised when Harriet Meara first showed it to me. It's half telescope, half projector. Moonlight filters down through a large diameter collecting tube, is focused with a crystal assembly above the bench, and finally reflects down onto whatever you're examining. The whole thing clicks loudly as you use it, rotating in time with the Earth, allowing you to work with strong moonlight even at the thinnest crescent moon. Harry told me she'd once even worked the moon on an overcast night, the clever optics inside focusing and magnifying even diffuse moonlight. It's one of the many wondrous things that make it a privilege to work here. Thank you, Morwenna. Anyway, Edward and I finally stood in front of the refractor. He reached up and touched it gently, then ran his sharp fingers along the primary mirror adjustment dials, along the projection focusing elements, caressing it as though to prove to himself it was all there. Finally, his fingers stopped at a brass plaque that said, "Lunar Refractor, Zeiss, 1891. Do you see?" he said. I did not, and told him so. He repeated his question, so I stepped right next to him, almost overpowered by the strong smell of wet earth and copper that surrounds the man. But I did see. Underneath the name and maker's mark was a dedication so small I had never read it before, hammered at odd angles into the brass, that said, "Presented by T. Portier, like father, like son." I didn't know what to say for the longest time. Eventually my thoughts formed into a question. Is T. Portier your father? I said. Edward stood back and shook his head, sighing a rattling sigh that went on for far longer than it should. He opened his arms into a shrug, then said in a voice so echoey it sounded like it had been travelling for miles in his throat, "One of the dangers of being parent is that boys grow up to be men." Dreams of the Red House was painted of, by, for, and interred in Philip Webb's magnum opus, the building he and William Morris built together in just a year in 1860. The Red House was designed by the pair as both distinctive family home and practical studio space where Morris and his contemporaries could champion the arts and crafts movement from within one of its most iconic creations. In its design, Webb projected the prevailing Victorian ideals of restoring what he saw as a decadent past. The house depicted in the painting is obviously still this same building, with its grand but comfortable angles, gables and nooks. That much is certain from comparing with plans and photographs from the archives in nearby Upton. But the character of this house is different in the painting. Many external fixings are missing, most noticeably the ground floor shutters, hinges and all, as well as the large handle of the garden well. Brown ivy chokes the rooftops and wraps around the 5 chimneys that all issue thick black smoke up into the twisted trees depicted impossibly high overhead. The house is still a hive of industry. but not of fine wallpaper printing or handmade furniture. William Morris sold the house only 5 years after it was completed. His stated reason was that his health was being harmed by the long commutes into London to his new design business. But I think this painting suggests a different explanation. The house is the same, but the surrounding landscapes is unrecognisable to anyone who has not spent time in the garden. That liminal world of dreams that I see every night. The red house is transported by Webb into that fey realm in this painting, and the ground floor windows flicker with the sparks and silhouettes of blacksmithing. Art and architecture are a battlefield. Of ideas, yes, but with the craft of the guys, a literal one too. There are some who equate the arts and crafts movement in England with Art Nouveau elsewhere in Europe and the world. An understandable mistake, they both have parallels in their reaction to the historicism that came before, and both embrace the sweeping forms of the natural world. But this superficial similarity does not run deep. Morris, Webb, and many others in the arts and crafts movement did not approve of the modern materials used by their contemporaries in Art Nouveau. Webb went further, forbidding any use of iron in his personal workshop, and advising all who would listen to use traditional joinery or, at worst, copper or bronze nails. The subject in Dreams of the Red House is the same house, yes, but it no longer has the compromise Webb was obliged to concede to build it in our world. All iron has been removed from the house. You can see the split brick where every nail and hinge has been pulled out, but that metal has not been wasted. Cold iron is being forged into weapons inside the house, and it is dreaming of war.
The Phosphine Catalogue is a Namtao production. The voice of Jude Francis Sharp is Wolfie Thorns, and the show is written and produced by me, Tris Oaten. For links to our merch store, the music, and Mastodon account, check out the podcast's website, phosphinecatalogue.com. To become a patron of the arts and get bonus episodes and other perks, it would be very kind of you to support us at patreon.com/phosphinecatalogue. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.